Julius Caesar is hailed as one of the greatest military commanders to have ever lived. His famous skill and luck won him not only countless battles, but also the unparalleled devotion of his troops. This lasting bond would see him through thick and thin, as common soldiers rose to become heroes in the name of their general, as we have already covered in our previous videos on the Gallic and Civil Wars. Flanked by such men, Caesar would prevail time and again when the odds seemed hopelessly stacked against him. However, there were critical moments in history when this relationship was put to the test. Today, we'll be exploring the fascinating event that was the Mutiny of the 10th Legion, which reveals much about Caesar's character and that of his men. This video was sponsored by Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of classes that can empower you to learn new skills and deepen passions in 2020. Lessons come in digestible formats that fit right into your busy schedule and can quickly help you on all sorts of personal projects or to support fellow creatives. For instance, if you wanted to start your own YouTube channel, I definitely suggest that you use Skillshare to brush up on all things like graphic design, animation, videography, marketing, and productivity. Specifically, I recommend Jake Bartlett's classes on animating and After Effects, which have been a huge help for my own work. Skillshare is incredibly affordable with an annual subscription of less than $10 a month. Click the link in the description below to get 2 free months of premium membership and explore your creativity. Caesar had begun his first military campaigns in 61 BC while serving as propraetor in charge of Hispania Ulterior. Here, he would fight the Lusitani tribes with existing Roman forces and his own newly raised 10th Legion. The 10th would prove its worth in combat and was later redeployed along with the 7th, 8th, and 9th Legions for the planned Gallic War of 58 BC. It is during this fighting that the 10th would earn its nickname Equestris and rise to prominence. The men quickly became the general's favorite unit, and Caesar is quoted as saying that they had his highest confidence in bravery. Over the next decade, the 10th would fight gallantly on the prestigious right wing of Caesar's army as it marched across the world, winning accolades and rewards that made it one of the most famed legions of its day. However, after these many years of fighting, the 10th Equestris would come to expect that its service would be rewarded. After all, Caesar had promised them peace at the end of the tunnel, with promises of land and wealth awaiting them upon their return home. After the fighting in Gaul, though, the civil war kicked off and these promises would have to wait. The 10th faithfully continued to serve Caesar and help him win a mighty victory against Pompey at the Battle of Pharsalus in 48 BC. Thus, after 13 years of service, they were rotated back to Italy to receive their long-awaited prize. Meanwhile, Caesar had set off in pursuit of Pompey in Egypt. Unwittingly, though, he walked headlong into a civil war and became trapped in Alexandria. Back in Rome, no one had heard from Caesar in quite some time, and rumors swirled of his possible demise. What if Caesar was dead? This sort of uncertainty did little to ameliorate the situation amongst the veteran legions in Italy who awaited their payments, land grants, and official discharge from service. As the months dragged on with no news and too much idle time, they degraded into a mutinous state. Soon, a number of centurions and tribunes from the various veteran legions in Italy rallied the men to an all-out uprising. Officers sent to quell the situation were stoned to death, and even Mark Antony was chased away from camp after failing to restore order. Finally, Caesar managed to break out of his trap in Alexandria, and after dallying in Egypt a short while, returned to Rome in 47 BC. Yet even this news did little to calm the situation, which had unfortunately been allowed to fester for far too long. Hearing of the incident, Caesar sent his praetor Sallust to intercede, but he too was attacked by a mob and barely escaped with his life. The ringleaders then led the mutinous legions from their camp in Campania towards Rome itself. By this time, their demands had grown to include even more concessions and promises of even greater future rewards, knowing full well that Caesar would have need for them if he were to have any hope of winning the civil war. Meanwhile, Caesar made arrangements to defend Rome in the event that the situation spiraled out of even his control. Despite these precautions, he outwardly projected an appearance of calm. The general then mounted a horse and, in spite of his staff's advice, rode out to meet the mutineers in person. He crossed quietly to their camp on the outskirts of Rome. Once inside, Caesar climbed atop a podium by the headquarters and simply waited. Word soon spread that the general had arrived, and many rebellious soldiers swarmed around him. Caesar calmly addressed them, as he had many times before, asking them to state their grievances as if nothing out of the ordinary were happening. They replied with a long list of their accomplishments and the promises left unanswered over their years of service. By the end, the soldiers demanded that they all be discharged, a move calculated to leverage their position as indispensable parts of Caesar's army. Shockingly, Caesar answered calmly that they were all dismissed, and that their service was to be rewarded as promised. Adding further to this incredibly casual concession, he addressed them merely as citizens rather than comrades, as he had so lovingly done before. Then he turned to leave, heading out of camp to wage the rest of his campaigns without them. This move was an absolute masterclass of psychological jujitsu on Caesar's part. He had just given the men everything they claimed they wanted, yet walked away with the one thing he knew they needed: their pride. The situation was now entirely reversed. The mutinous legions begged for further service. Caesar declined the offer, expressing sadness that they did not trust in his ability to keep his promises. Soon, the veteran soldiers were driven into further hysteria, imploring him to forgive their lapse in faith and begging him to bring them along to Africa. Finally, Caesar relented, stating that they would all join him. All, that is, except for the 10th Equestris. At this point, the wounded pride of the veteran soldiers and officers overcame them. They now begged Caesar to do anything to them, even to decimate them, if it meant that he would bring them along. With feigned reluctance, Caesar allowed himself to be slowly persuaded by their groveling. Eventually, he announced that they were all forgiven and that none were to be killed. However, he did secretly make note of the ringleaders, and is said to have arranged for them to be placed in the most dangerous positions of his upcoming campaigns. Thus, the veterans of Caesar's army now redoubled their dedications to the general and would serve valiantly as the tip of his spear. The 10th Equestris Legion once again regained its place of honor. They served with distinction throughout the campaigns, with a veteran of the 10th famously stepping forward from his battle lines in Africa to personally confront the enemy general. Slaying his foe's horse, the soldier would shout, "That will show you, Labienus, that it's a soldier of the 10th attacking you." Such was the renewed ferocity of the 10th Equestris Legion that it would be their efforts which won Caesar the final climactic battle of the civil war at Munda. I absolutely love this tale from history, which highlights the unique bonds formed between generals and their soldiers that actually underlays much of our past. By understanding this story, we gain much insight about the fundamental workings of human relationships that serve as the true source of power for figures like Julius Caesar. I look forward to covering more topics like this in the future. A huge thanks is owed to our supporters on Patreon, and the many talented researchers, writers, and artists who made this video possible. Please consider contributing to fund future content. If you found this topic interesting, check out these related videos about our fascinating past. Be sure to like and subscribe for more history, and check out our description for ways to support the channel. Thanks for watching.